The second step is kind of that index of all these different artifacts, right? Similar to what you saw in the Huddle map, this is a breakdown of all the artifacts, simple links to the versions, simple link to the documentation, and then any links to references. So this one pipeline metric sheet has 4 different references. We can click this to view that reference in a different area. And then lastly, the Huddle documentation, which I'll cover in a little bit. I'm going to click into one of these announcements sheets. So this is a sheet that's in my workspace. We can absolutely click over into this to kind of view it on the Smartsheet side. You'll see here that this is just a blank sheet, right? I've got all my different columns. I've got all my different bits of information behind the scenes. At first glance inside of Huddle, you'll notice that we don't have any data. There's no data in the sheet, but we also don't track any data on Smartsheet side. So similar to what Zaid mentioned, we're purely looking at the configuration of these artifacts. We're looking at the schema, the structure. We're not touching rows. We don't want to get row data. We don't want to provide backup. We don't want to do any of that stuff. This is purely the structure. So we know that references to other sheets, we know that data that might be flowing up to dashboards, and we know that automations that rely on different column types. We want to track that status of the schema, right? So looking at this sheet really quickly, you'll notice that we've got a list of columns, some information around those, some high-level information. But the really cool part of what Huddle actually brings to version control is this sort of, I spilled the beans already, version control. It allows us to track changes to our solution over time. So when we speak to users in the space, we realize that sometimes they're reluctant to open admin access to other users that might be in their group because they don't want to have people inadvertently delete or change a column that could be critical to the solution, right? So this tool allows us to collaborate at a bigger level now so that if people do want to attain more responsibility in our solution, we can open up admin privileges and delegate some of that work and track changes now. So that in this example here, we notice that the initial version for the sheet that was created versus the live version now is showing a change in the title column. It looks like somebody's changed it so it's plural. Now, somebody also changed the content column to go from text to drop down. Those might be actions that came out of a meeting that somebody actually completed. I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys how we save a version. So if I go in here, we can save this current state version with a simple message that says, you know, this was the outcome of a meeting on 12/13, right? I'm gonna confirm this and it's saved my version. And now you'll notice that there are no changes. The live version to the version that we're looking at right now are identical. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you a quick example. Let's go remove this S and make this column title. I'll go ahead and fetch the new version. And you can see here, if I look at that previous version that was saved to the live version now, you'll see that I removed the S in titles and now it just is simply title. Now I can save this update as a new version, or if we say, hey, you know what, this was not an approved change, I can click on this particular change and roll this back to the sheet. Rolling an item back to a previous state will not affect data. We're simply updating that column. Now there's a bunch of different things behind the scenes that take place here. I'm not gonna do this actually on this demo, but that's basically in a nutshell how we can manage versions for our solutions, track those critical elements that make up the sheet. You know, we've got columns, we've got sheet metadata, we've got automations behind the scenes, we've got sheet summaries, and we've got cross-sheet references that we want to track and make sure that these changes don't affect our overarching solution. Or if they do affect it, we can simply roll them back with a click of a button.